Friends, it's good to see you all again. Welcome back to another edition of Karen's in the Kitchen. We've got a pantry-friendly meal for you today called tuna pasta bake. Super easy, really doesn't require a whole lot in the way of fresh ingredients, so it's great to have on hand. And yeah, let's get started. I've already done a bit of the prep work ahead of time, just so that we can go through this fairly quickly, because frankly, I don't think you want to watch me boil pasta. So here's our ingredient list. We've got pasta, 2 cups of dried pasta, but this has already been cooked ahead of time. And we've got crushed tomatoes, we have an onion, we have grated cheese, we have garlic, we have Italian seasoning, and we have our tuna. So let's get started. We're going to start by chopping up the onion, and I'm going to show you this great little tip that I learned from a chef that I really admire. Her name's Karen Barnaby. She's been a Vancouver institution icon for a very long time. Phenomenal cook. You start by cutting your onion in half and peeling off the skin, which sometimes it's, you know, when it's that really paper thin skin, I tend to take the first layer off too, just because it makes it easier. Throw that into the green waste, or if you're really keen, you can put it into a bag, keep all your bits and bobs of onion ends and celery ends and things like that, and save them in the freezer. Use them to make a soup stock, vegetable stock. So the next thing you do is don't cut off the stem end, and just make vertical slices right into the onion, almost up to the end. The nice thing about this is that the stem is what's going to hold this together. And then you simply slice it. And you end up with really well chopped onion. And virtually no waste. So I like that trick. Now I'm going to put it into this container bowl here, I should say. This is what we're going to bake the pasta in, but just so I can get the garlic chopped up as well. So we're also going to use a couple of cloves of fresh garlic. So now if you've got a garlic crusher, by all means use that. I don't like them because I've got arthritis in my hands and it's hard sometimes for me to chop them or squeeze it hard enough to actually get anything out of it. So I tend to just chop my garlic, mince it really fine. And this is all I do. And obviously, it takes a bit of effort if you want it really, really finely minced. Up to you to determine how much mincing you want to do. I think we're almost good here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So, I'm going to put that in here too. You'll notice I have a dishcloth underneath my cutting board. That stops it from sliding around. A nice little kitchen safety tip for you. Okay, so now we're going to move over to the stove. Got our pan here ready to go. Turn on the gas. Get the pan going. I like to heat the pan up a little bit first. Typically, you know, non-stick pans they're supposed to be non-stick, but just a rule of thumb, if you're not using a non-stick pan, hot pan, cold oil, and then your food should not stick. So we're gonna put that in there, and then we're going to pop in the onions and the garlic. Give it a little stir around so that everything's coated with oil. I usually just use canola oil for most of my cooking. Let's say I think it's a great oil. It's flavorless, which is important. If you want flavor, olive oil is a nice alternative. So there, you can see that starting to sizzle a little bit. We'll just give that a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be really cooked, just until you start to soften it up a little bit. And then we are going to add in the rest of the ingredients and pop everything in the oven. So, pretty fast and easy dish, gotta say. I like that. Give it a little stir. What we're looking for is the onions to become translucent. The moment they are opaque, which means you can't see through them. So as they cook, they become translucent, which, I mean, theoretically, if you were to hold it up, I don't suppose you could see through it anyway. It is an onion after all. But that's one of those terms that they use for cooking. So give that a couple of minutes to sizzle. I'm just going to bring the rest of my ingredients over. Crushed tomatoes and the Italian seasoning. Crushed tomatoes are really nice to work with. They're thicker than a tomato sauce, so they give some really nice substance and body to your sauce. You can see, and it's not quite tomato paste, sort of somewhere in between the two. Really good for sauces. So we like to use those. Okay, this is coming along well. Oh, the smell is amazing. I don't know about you, but I love the way onions smell when they're frying. Okay. A little bit of garlic. You got to watch this to some degree because we've put the garlic in at the same time. Garlic tends to burn a lot more easily than onions do, so it's important that you pay attention. You don't, burned garlic is nasty. Mind you, so is burned onions, but burned garlic's even worse. So there we go. Now we're going to add our tomato. Pop that in the sink. So, fun fact, tomatoes, sauce, boil at a really low temperature. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, but I think tomatoes boil at a much lower temperature than that. So, there's our, okay, now we're gonna sprinkle in the Italian seasoning. Give that a bit of a stir. And then we are going to give it a little taste. You'll notice I've not put in any salt yet. So we'll get that going now. Give it a little taste, see how it'll, because you're using dried herbs, it needs to simmer for a couple of minutes for the flavors to blend. So we'll give this a little taste and see how it goes. It's actually pretty good. In my world, it always needs salt. So we're going to put some of that in. Just a little bit, not a lot. Another nice little thing you can put into your sauce if you're interested is tomatoes can sometimes be quite acidic. So if you're finding the sauce is a bit too bitter, here goes the pepper. You can also put in a tiny little bit of sugar, which I think I will do. Of course, I didn't have this prepared ahead of time, so here's the sugar now. We're just going to put in a little bit. And that just, that cuts the acidity of the sauce. Not a lot, like maybe half a teaspoon. Brown sugar works really well. Cinnamon, that's another nice thing. It's not listed on your recipe, but just a pinch of cinnamon does the same, has the same effect on your tomato sauces. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit, give it a little taste. Delicious. Okay, now in goes the tuna. So we're not going to mix it up a lot because we don't want it to totally disintegrate. It's nice to have fairly good chunks in there. I mean, if you want, you can mesh it all up. That's up to you. Then we're going to put our pasta in. The recipe tells you to cook the pasta just sort of halfway, because with all this extra liquid in here, the pasta will continue to cook in the sauce in the oven. And of course, nobody wants mushy pasta. Because we're using tuna, I thought it would be kind of cheesy fun to use pasta shells, sort of keeping with the nautical theme. But the other nice thing about using shells is that they're really good for catching the sauce. So there's your meal. We're going to pop it into a baking dish. Like this. Scrape out all that yummy sauce. Don't want to leave any of that behind. Spread it out like this. Now I like to white the edges a little bit just so it looks tidy. Then we're going to pop some grated cheese on it. This is mozzarella. You could put Parmesan, you can put Monterey Jack, you could put cheddar. Get that on there. And voila, we're finished. It goes into the oven, of course, at this point, but I didn't do that ahead of time. So that's what you look like going into the oven. When it comes out, it'll be all hot and bubbly and delicious. You can sprinkle a little dried parsley on it if you want. But there you go, my friends. Tuna pasta bake. Hope you enjoy it.